Welcome to the Savage Executive Podcast. My name is Steve Smith, and I'm proud to be able to walk you through this journey. This podcast is for faith-driven leaders. Whether you're running a company, leading a ministry, or navigating both, you're in the right place. Every week, we bring you practical frameworks, real stories, and biblical wisdom for the complexity that you carry. This is wisdom for the weight you carry. Let's get into it. There are things that you carry that nobody else can see. You walk into a room, you're smiling, you're present. Someone asks you a question and you give a confident answer. And inside, behind the composure, you're holding 3 conversations you can't have out loud. You're sitting with a decision that affects someone's livelihood, and only you can make it. You're processing information that would change everything if the wrong person knew about it. You're absorbing the anxiety of a dozen people who look to you to not be anxious. And underneath all of it, this quiet awareness. If this fails, it's on you. That's the weight of leadership. Not the work, the weight. The work is hard, but it's manageable. The weight is what nobody prepares you for. And it doesn't matter whether you lead a company, a ministry, a nonprofit, or an institution. If you're the person responsible, you know exactly what I'm describing. We talk a lot about execution on this show, frameworks, systems, financial discipline, decision velocity. All of it matters, but today I want to talk about something that is more foundational, because all of those frameworks fail when the leader carrying them breaks. The best strategy in the world is useless if the person responsible for it quietly is running on empty. Today's conversation isn't about being weak, it's about being wise. The leaders who last, the ones who build things that outlive a single good quarter, they've figured out how to carry the weight without being crushed by it. That's what we're going to talk about today. Not all leadership weight is the same. And here's why that matters. Different weight requires different strategies. If you try to respond to emotional weight the same way you respond to decision weight, you'll exhaust yourself and solve the wrong problem. The category determines the response. I've identified 4 categories of leadership weight. Every leader I work with, CEO, executive pastor, nonprofit director, business owner, they carry all 4. They hit hardest at different times under different pressures. So let's walk through each one of them. The first category is decision weight. This is the burden of making calls that affect real people, their livelihoods, their futures, their confidence in the organization, which program to cut, whether to let someone go, which strategic direction to bet on, a financial commitment that might pay off in 3 years or prove catastrophic. For ministry leaders, decision weight has its own particular texture. You're not just deciding what's financially prudent or operationally smart. You're deciding things that touch people's sense of calling and belonging. When you're the pastor who has to tell a beloved, long-tenured staff member that their role is being eliminated, that's not just an HR decision. That's a weight most business leaders don't fully understand. The same goes for the executive pastor deciding which ministry gets funded and which one gets cut in the budget crunch. The stakes feel spiritual because they are. Decision weight is unique because it's irreducible. You can get input. You can build consensus. You can consult advisors. But at the end of the process, the call is yours. The buck stops with you because it has to stop somewhere. And you're the one with the broadest view and the highest accountability. How do you carry decision weight well? First, accept that decision making is the job. The moment you start resenting having to make hard calls, you've started resenting your role. Second, build decision frameworks that make choices systematic rather than agonizing. We covered this in Decision Velocity episode. Third, make the call. Indecision is heavier than any wrong decision. A wrong decision you can correct. A delayed decision corrodes trust, morale, and momentum in ways that are much harder to undo. The second category is information weight. This is one of those that are very isolating categories, and the one leaders discuss the least. You know things others don't. Financial realities that would change the energy in the room. Personal situations that are evolving. Strategic risks you're monitoring quietly. You carry information that in the wrong hands or at the wrong moment could hurt people or damage the organization. So you hold it. And holding information alone is exhausting in ways that compound slowly. You sit in a leadership team meeting while everyone makes plans around a reality they don't even know yet. You celebrate a milestone publicly while privately managing a risk that could unravel it. Over time, information weight shows up in the body. Leaders carrying it chronically often can't sleep. They're distracted in conversations. They're short with the people closest to them because they're spending enormous cognitive energy managing what they know. The strategy is not to share more than they should. It's to build a confidential circle. Board members bound to confidentiality. A trusted advisor with no organizational stake. A spouse who can hold weight without carrying it to others. A peer group of other leaders who understand the terrain. You need somewhere to say things out loud, even once. The information doesn't go away, but it gets distributed across the right shoulders. That distribution alone changes your capacity to function. The third category is emotional weight. Your team brings their anxieties to you. Your clients or congregation bring their frustrations. Your board brings its expectations. You absorb, you process, you project calm when you feel none. Over time, you become a container for other people's emotional reality while still managing your own. Let me give you a concrete picture. You start your week with a difficult performance conversation on Monday. Tuesday, a board member calls with frustrations about a decision that you made. Wednesday, someone in your congregation or client base is in crisis and needs your support. Thursday, your leadership team is anxious about a transition and looking to you to steady the ship. And on Friday, your family needs you emotionally present, not just physically in the room. You've been absorbing all week. There's nothing left. This is called emotional labor. In leadership, it's largely invisible. Leaders who ignore it crack in one of two ways. They go numb, disconnection, cynicism, the kind of detachment that kills culture from the top down, or they overflow, outbursts, reactive decisions, relationships damaged by a version of you that you don't recognize and didn't intend to unleash. The strategy is intentional recovery. You cannot give what you do not have. Build daily practices that restore you. Not a vacation once a year, daily recovery. Prayer, exercise, time with people who don't need anything from you, time outdoors. Whatever replenishes you, protect it with the same seriousness you protect your most important meeting. And this includes your physical health, a category most leadership books mention, but a few leaders actually steward. 1 Corinthians 6 says your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit. That's not just a verse for summer camp. It's a stewardship principle for leaders. Your energy, your focus, your emotional resilience are all downstream of your physical condition. Sleep, exercise, and the way you fuel your body aren't wellness trends, they're leadership disciplines. The leader who treats their body as an inexhaustible resource will discover, usually at the worst possible moment, that it isn't. And if you're chronically exhausted, you are not leading at your capacity, period. There's also an important distinction I want to draw here between solitude and isolation. Solitude is strategic withdrawal for renewal, time alone with God, time to think without input, time to let the noise settle. Jesus modeled it consistently. Mark 1:35 says he rose early and withdrew to a solitary place to pray. He didn't wait for the crowd to thin out. He built the solitude in before the demands arrived. Isolation, by contrast, is avoidance. It's going dark when the weight is heaviest. It's pulling away from your confidential circle, your family, your community, not to be renewed, but to escape the conversations that feel too costly. Solitude refills you and sends you back. Isolation depletes you and the people who depend on you. The leader who can't tell the difference between the two is at real risk. Know the limit too. You're a leader, not a therapist. Part of carrying emotional weight well is recognizing when a burden isn't yours to carry it all and redirecting it accordingly without guilt. That leads us to our last category, ultimate weight. This is the deepest one. The awareness that if this fails, if the organization collapses, if the mission stalls, if the people you're responsible for suffer, it lands on you. Not just professionally, often personally. Your reputation, your family's security, your sense of purpose, the thing you've poured yourself into for years. This weight is heaviest at 3 a.m. in the quiet when there's no meeting to attend and no problem to solve, and it's just you and the full reality of what you carry. The scenarios your mind runs in the dark. What if we don't make payroll? What if the major donor walks away? What if the key hire doesn't work out? What if I'm wrong about the direction? These aren't irrational fears. They're the questions of a person who understands the stakes. And for faith-driven leaders, there's an additional layer that secular leadership literature never touches. Stewardship before God. Did I make the right call? Am I being faithful with what I've been given? Is this still the right assignment? That spiritual accountability, it adds weight that doesn't appear on any organizational chart. The strategy for ultimate weight is theological before it's operational. You carry responsibility for stewardship. You do not carry responsibility for sovereignty. God is sovereign. You are not. Your job is faithfulness. Use what you've been given well. Make the best decisions you can with the information you have. Lead with integrity. The outcome is in hands larger than yours. This isn't a cop-out. It's the release valve that keeps you from being crushed by a weight you were never designed to carry alone. The leader who confuses their role with God's role will burn out every time. The leader who understands the distinction can sustain for decades. I, like you, have been there before. I've been in a season where the weight of leadership wakes me up at 3 a.m. every night. I've carried heavy things that I can't discuss with just anyone. I've walked through enormous difficulty not knowing if I can make it through. Matthew 11, verses 28 through 30, Jesus says, "Come to me, all ye who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Notice what Jesus doesn't say. He doesn't say, "Come to me and I will remove the yoke." He says, "Take my yoke upon you." The yoke doesn't disappear. The burden doesn't evaporate. Leadership weight remains. The decision, the information, the emotional labor, the ultimate responsibility. That's not going away as long as you're in the role. But there is a difference between a yoke you pull alone and a yoke you share with someone whose shoulders are stronger than yours. The weight is the same. The experience of carrying it is entirely different. A yoke is a tool designed for two. It was never meant for one. The rest that Jesus offers isn't vacation from responsibility. It's peace within responsibility. The ability to carry heavy things without being crushed by them. The awareness that you are not ultimately alone with what you carry. There's also something significant in the words, "learn from me." Jesus is describing an ongoing posture of discipleship, not a one-time transfer of burden. The rest is found in the relationship, in the daily orientation toward Him as you carry what you carry. This is a daily practice, not a crisis response. The leaders who wait until they're broken before they come to Matthew 11 are the ones who break. The leaders who build this orientation into every day through prayer, through worship, through solitude before the crowd arrives are the ones who carry the weight for decades. For those of us who lead in faith, whether in business, a ministry, or nonprofit, this is not sentiment. It's a practical strategy. You were not designed to carry ultimate weight alone. You were designed to carry it in partnership with God. That partnership doesn't make you passive or remove your responsibility. It makes you capable of carrying the weight without being broken by it. If you're carrying something heavy right now, and I know that you are, this is an invitation, not to put it down, but to carry it differently. Here's your assignment this week. One question to sit with seriously. Which category of leadership weight is heaviest for me right now? If it's decision weight, name the decision you've been avoiding. Write it down. Set a deadline this week or next, not soon. Identify one person who can give you input. Then make the call. Indecision is not stewardship. It's avoidance with a professional sounding name. If it's information weight, identify one person in your confidential circle who can hear what you're carrying, not to solve it, just to receive it. If you don't have that person, that's the first problem to solve. Have that conversation this week. If it's emotional weight, look at your calendar. Find your daily recovery practice. If it's not there, add one this week and protect it. And if you're chronically exhausted, not just tired from a hard week, but chronically running low, look honestly at your physical rhythms, sleep, movement, how you're fueling yourself. These aren't secondary issues, they are leadership issues. Also ask yourself, am I in solitude or isolation right now? Am I withdrawing to be renewed or withdrawing to avoid? One refills you, the other compounds the weight. And if it's ultimate weight, write down 2 sentences. First, what I am responsible for. Second, what I am not responsible for. You are responsible for faithfulness. You are not responsible for sovereignty. Read those sentences every morning this week before you open your email. Diagnosis first. Once you know which category is heaviest, you know exactly what move to make. I want to close with something I don't say enough on this show. Leadership is an act of courage. Every day you walk into the room carrying what you carry, projecting what needs to be projected, making the calls that need to be made. That is not ordinary. Most people will never know what it costs. That's the nature of the role. But carrying weight courageously doesn't mean carrying it stubbornly. Strength receives support. Strength builds recovery rhythms. Strength stewards the body God gave you. Strength practices solitude without sliding into isolation. Strength asks for help from the right people at the right time. Strength leans into the partnership that Matthew 11 describes. You were made for this. Not meaning you were made to carry it alone, meaning you were made with the capacity to carry it well, if you're intentional about how. If you want to go deeper on practical rhythms, I would love to have a conversation with you. I have a companion guide that I can send to you that goes deeper into the biblical concepts that we've been talking about. 7 practices for guarding your mental health as a leader. Reach out to me through social media or email me at steve@savageexecutive.com. Thank you for joining me today on this episode. Would you like the podcast and share it with a leader who needs it the most? And we will see you again next Tuesday. Have a great day.